6:05, so I can get us started. Good evening and welcome to the 2024 San Joaquin Valley Speaks, formerly known as the Fresno Speaks, virtual community town hall hosted by Move the Valley, woo! Which is also formerly known as the Fresno County Civic Engagement Table. My name is Nancy Zhang, and I'm the Executive Director for Hmong Innovating Politics. I grew up in Merced. Let's go to '09 and understand firsthand the issues that our families are facing in the Central Valley. HIP serves Hmong youth and families in Sacramento and Fresno, bridging two of the largest Hmong American communities across the state and nation. We aim to cultivate Hmong and Southeast Asian American youth leaders and create a culture of civic and political participation in the Hmong and Southeast Asian American community. Thank you for making time to join tonight's community town hall. We have a lot of really good and important information to share with you all. The survey results that we've collected affirms that we're not alone. And I'm going to repeat that because I feel like you all need to know this, is that the information, the survey results that we've collected affirms that we're not alone in our struggles related to the lack of affordable housing and safe neighborhoods, the rising cost of rent, the lack of opportunities for youth of color to stay and build future in the Central Valley, the lack of access to quality healthcare, reproductive care, and climate change. We heard from you loud and clear, and the work is far from over. So we hope that you'll join us in the movement to fight for the resources that we deserve. We can't just do this work alone. So with all the organizations here, like, we know we can't do it alone. So we will be providing more opportunities after this town hall on how you can get involved. So I hope that you all can join us. With the primary election coming up, if you didn't know, next Tuesday, March 5th, we encourage you to please vote. Ballot returns are at an all-time low, especially for young voters of color ages 18 to 34. We believe that voting is one way to build power in our communities, and that we can't create lasting systemic change without your engagement in how we co-govern together. By voting, you get to determine a better quality of life for you and your family. We know that voting is not an individual activity. I should know this because I grew up in a big family, a big Hmong family of 10 siblings, and I'm always reminding them to vote, including my refugee parents. So voting together with your family and friends really ensures that your shared collective values are prioritized. You play a key role in choosing who represents us, where our government resources will go in order for our community and loved ones to really thrive. Before we dive into the rest of the program, I would like to note that this event is being recorded and that the recording will stay on our Facebook page and also the YouTube platform that you are viewing from. We will also have an Instagram Live if you would like to join us on that platform as well. Throughout the event, if you would like to make any comments on the video, that will come through on our end, and we'll be able to see and hope to be able to respond directly to you during our Q&A section. Feel free to drop your questions in the chat as well. I would like to now introduce you to our new Executive Director, who will explain what Move the Valley is in our agenda for tonight. So please help me welcome Destiny Rodriguez. Destiny has a dedicated history of working in nonprofits for over 15 years and has worked for the governor's appointee, California Air Resources Board member. She also serves as the trustee for the State Center Community College. I'll pass it to you now, Destiny, and welcome.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Thank you for the introduction. Hello, good evening, everyone. I hope you all are doing well tonight, and thank you for joining us. I just want to welcome you again to our 2024 San Joaquin Valley Speaks virtual community town hall hosted by Move the Valley. My name is Destiny Rodriguez, and I am the new Executive Director for Move the Valley. I'm so excited to lead this coalition of partner organizations who all do such impactful work across our Central Valley. In 2023, the Fresno County Civic Engagement Table expanded its geography, scope of work, and relaunched as Mobilize, Organize, Vote, Empower the Valley, also known as Move the Valley. Move the Valley is creating long-term social change through regional power building, as the largest multilingual civic engagement coalition actively running and coordinating voter engagement campaigns across our Central Valley all the way into Sacramento. The coalition comprises the partners organizations of ones that you see here, which include Communities for a New California Education Fund, Faith in the Valley, Fresno Metro Black Chamber of Commerce, Hmong Innovating Politics, and the Chikara Movement. So again, tonight we will share findings of our San Joaquin Valley Speaks survey, where over 2,000 residents from across 9 counties participated in this study. This is actually one of the largest survey findings of its kind, and we really want to thank the team at Data for Social Good for compiling all this great data for us. Now, some information that we share tonight might surprise you. It might anger you, and it may just give you hope. Our hope for tonight is that you encourage your friends, your family, and your community to take action on March 5th. For tonight's community town hall, we will be discussing the history of the San Joaquin Valley San Joaquin Valley Speaks, basically the purpose and the history of why we're doing these surveys. And then we will go into our our Data for Social Good presentation by Jose and his team. And then we will have some discussion on some of the survey results and how they impact our youth. And also, we will also be talking about reparations and some of the data that we received looking at that. And then we will have time for questions and answers. So again, this is going to be a really enriching evening. Thank you for sharing it with us. And now I'm going to introduce you to each of our speakers. And as they come off camera, they will give you their title and just their organization in a short description. So again, thank you. And I'm going to pass it to Hatsune.
Hi, everyone. My name is Hatsune Aguilar. I am the Director of Strategic Engagement for Communities for a New California Education Fund. And Communities for a New California Education Fund is a civic engagement organization that builds power across California, and especially in rural areas in the Sierra Foothills, San Joaquin, Central, and Coachella Valleys. And our families and neighbors know we deserve to thrive where we live, with safe, affordable places to live, clean drinking water, and fulfilling jobs that pay us well. And to do that means disrupting the system that excludes, steals, and exploits regular people like us so we may all prosper equally. I'll pass it over to you, Monita.
Hello, everyone. My name is Monita Porter. I'm the Deputy Director of the Fresno Metro Black Chamber of Commerce. Welcome into this space. At the Fresno Metro Black Chamber of Commerce, we're a 501c3 nonprofit. And what we do is we champion small businesses in the greater Fresno region. We are successful. We remove social, economic, and political barriers from our business owners. Our mission is to engage, educate, and empower businesses, Black-owned businesses. I will pass it to Jeski.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jaskeet Kaur. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Fresno County Community Organizer with the Chikara Movement. I am born and raised in the 559, and I've been organizing with Punjabi Sikh communities in Fresno and all of California close to 4 years now. The Chikara Movement is a statewide grassroots organization with a strong background in youth organizing on high school and collegiate campuses, but is also constantly bringing programming that benefits beyond youth and the Punjabi community through health, labor and resource equity, and civic engagement programming. And I will pass to Letty.
Good evening, buenas noches, everyone. My name is Leti Valencia, and I'm the co-director of organizing for Faith in the Valley. Faith in the Valley is a multi-faith, multiracial grassroots coalition of congregations, community members, and students in 5 counties across California's Central Valley that builds power among historically excluded communities to act together for systems and policy change. Our mission is to unlock the power of people to put faith into action to advance racial and economic justice in local communities across California's Central Valley. The organization has a vision for a future that is free of economic oppression, racism, and discrimination, in which everyone lives in a safe and healthy environment, is respected and included, and has agency over the decisions that shape their lives. Our core program focuses on leadership formation of BIPOC volunteer leaders and community organizing and civic engagement, amplifying the voices of underserved Central Valley residents and equipping them to tell their stories, to build power, and to work together to improve their communities. I will pass it over to you, Nancy.
Sounds good. Thank you, Letty. Again, hi everyone. I'm Nancy Zhang with Hmong Innovating Politics. I've been organizing with HIP since 2012, since our founding in Sacramento. Again, we serve Hmong youth and families in Sacramento and Fresno, bridging two of the largest Hmong American communities across the state and the nation. Our mission is seeks to advance social justice and build power with Hmong youth and families through leadership development and multi-generational community organizing. And I just really want to emphasize the need to really build in a culture of civic and political participation in our community. And so also just want to give a shout out to our outreach specialists, our youth and young adults that are on also sharing space with us. So I'm really excited to be here with you all.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you, everyone, for sharing about your organizations and what you do. Again, as you can see, we have a powerhouse of diversity and orgs and regional representation, which is quite amazing. And again, I'm just really excited to really get into the agenda. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it to Hatsune, and she is going to discuss the purpose and history of the San Joaquin Valley Speaks survey. Hatsune?
Thank you. So the San Joaquin Valley Speaks survey allows us to look at empirical research of rural areas of California. And we're able to gather unbiased information on the needs of families. So we first began our research on the city of Fresno voters in 2020. And out of that research, we were able to highlight voter priorities that included interest in crime prevention solutions, such as investing in youth and inclusive parks programming. We learned over and over that many voters just do not know how to access city resources and even how to contact their city council members. So now, as we have broadened our research to 9 counties, we have the opportunity to ensure the region is better represented by their elected leaders and to empower voters by connecting them to the knowledge that they are not alone in their desire for progressive policies that will enable their families to thrive. So we have known for years that there is a housing crisis. We have seen it as our families have been pushed farther and farther away from their community and job centers. The cost of buying or renting a home across the San Joaquin and Sacramento valleys has increased significantly. And the story that so many of us have grown up with is that if we get a good education, we will get a good job, and that out of that, we will be able to secure financial stability for ourselves and our families. And so now we ask, what about this story is no longer working? How have our families experienced the housing crisis? What are the obstacles to home ownership facing our families? So for CNC and the broader coalition, the answers to these questions and others about other issues that we care about allow us to interrupt this system that rewards a few at the expense of many. So you will hear from Jose Bedoya and his team from Data for Social Good, and they will provide an update on the key findings of the San Joaquin Valley Speaks survey result, the coalition's 4th annual survey, and our first region-wide survey. And why are these surveys findings important? They allow us to engage our families and neighbors in thoughtful conversation, to hold our elected officials accountable, to motivate each other to participate in the upcoming primary election on March 5th and the general election in November. And they remind us to look for candidates who will champion our priorities when we vote. So I'll pass it back to you, Destiny.
Thank you, Hatsune. So now the moment that everyone has been waiting for, our data reveal. What does our survey say? What information are we going to reveal to you tonight? Well, Jose Medola, the Chief Executive Officer for Data for Social Good, will now dive into the survey results. And I encourage you again to put your questions into the Q&A so that we can have a robust discussion later. Thank you.
All right, good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to present to you the results of the study. So let's go a little bit about, talk about the table of contents, what we're going to present to you, a little bit of background, demographics, macro statistics, and give you some insight into the general issues facing the 9 counties that we hold, housing, reparations, youth, and a couple of key takeaways from there. So let's dive into the numbers. So a couple of things you should know in terms of the statistics. We had 2,616 people who actually responded to a survey. So that's about a 2% plus or minus error rate. Now, one of the things that I'm very proud of to report to you guys is this is either the largest or second largest survey that's been done for the Central Valley in the last 20 years. So we should all be very proud about the effort and the enthusiasm that people actually went about this work. So really a big shout out to the organizations here and also to the participants themselves. Well, how did that break down in terms of demographics? Here you see our white participants, the Kenai County actual versus our survey. So what this shows is we came very close to our demographics in terms of actual to the survey responses. Male, female breakdown by sex, 50% female, 48% male, 1.89 non-binary. And then the respondents by party, we also try to do this, even though we're a nonpartisan organization, we're a nonprofit organization, we try to just bring data to you guys to talk about, how people feel from the political side of the spectrum. So Democrats 41, Republicans 21, non-party presbyterians 33%, and other at 3.4%. Educational attainment, this is the 9 county average. So less than high school is 2%, all the way to most of the folks that over here at 43% that said have some community college or associate's degree. Bachelor's at 23%, and master's is about 13.4. So every now and then we'll talk about significance, statistical significance versus no statistical significance. If you see a yellow box, it means that more than likely it was not just a slight change, a slight number, where you have 45 versus 42%, but an actual distinguishable number that is not caused by error. In other words, it's less likely to be a fluke than to be a true fact. Okay, with that background, let's present some of the other data. How did the people that were surveyed? Again, here's our California map, right smack in the Central Valley. We have 2,600. How do they break down by county? So we see Fresno at 349, Sacramento as largest, Madera 239, Merced 271, San Joaquin 236, Stanislaus 327, etc. As you go on, Tulare 224, 232, Fort Kings, and Kern at 285. We broke this down into 2 parts, an email and a survey, and you can see the breakdown in terms of emails and calls. What is encouraging is that people are now beginning to pick up the phone again as opposed to maybe taking it something like this, a survey via email, which is positive, because at the end of the day, we want human interaction. Okay, so with that, let's dive into the general issues. So we asked a couple of questions for our general issues. What is the several issues in our communities and which has had the largest negative impact on your household. So what we see is that affordable housing was number 1. By and large, the largest issue that was negatively affecting people in the Central Valley, followed by local infrastructure and the lack of opportunities for youth and young adults. So we're going to focus on those 3 top issues going forward. Okay, so let me just click through. So I wanted to then break that up into a crosstab of that question by race. And so what we see that then to get a sense of who is actually most impacted by this topic. So what we see here is that Latinos were significantly more impacted in terms of affordability, say, versus our white population. And the same thing goes for Black as well as in our other populations. So that's kind of the yellow box that I talked about earlier at the beginning. In terms of white infrastructures, who is most negatively impacted as in terms of respondents? Well, what we see here is white respondents were statistically more significant to say local infrastructure was negative for them. And then the lack of opportunities, 15% of Latinos said so. And again, a statistically significant rate as opposed to our white population here, as well as Blacks in comparison to our white population. Okay, on page forward. We wanted to break that question up as well into gender or sex. And what we see here is that, again, female population is statistically more significant than, say, our male population. To say that this issue, the issue of affordability, had a negative impact on their household. When we talk to men, same question, and divided by sex, we see that men were more likely to say this was an issue. And it's about the same with respect to lack of opportunities for youth. So as you can see, a little bit of a gender or sex difference. Same question again by age. So what we see is that youth in particular are statistically significantly more likely to respond, that affordable housing costs and mortgage evictions, those issues, housing issues, are impacted. And this is far and beyond every other age group. Now, the way to read this is that this age group also had a statistically significant different answer than, say, for example, our 66 plus, this than our 66 plus, and 40% more than our 66 plus. In other words, that in our 9 county surveys, older folks tend to be more secure about their housing than, say, younger folks or younger cohorts. With respect to local infrastructure, so who was most impacted by this issue? Well, the opposite effect here, youth is not necessarily impacted, but or responded that they or not as impacted, say, than their older cohorts. So that's a way to interpret that data, and it's not a fluke. It's very significant with respect to young folks. Young folks, I guess, are not as impacted with respect to infrastructure. In terms of lack of opportunities, what we see is that the age groups that are in that middle, that have the parents, as an example, are the ones that are most impacted or most adversely impacted. So the parents are answering that lack of opportunities for youth and young adults are the biggest issue in their household. Then we broke it down by party. Affordable housing, by and large, is a bigger concern for Democrats and NPP than Republicans. You see it here on our graph on the left. So this to this and this to this. And then in terms of infrastructure, those who call themselves Republican, again, this is self-reported party identification, say that they are most impacted in terms of the question of local infrastructure. There's no really discernible difference between party with respect to young adults. Okay, so then what we did in our surveys, we wanted to take a deeper dive, peel the onion back, if you will, in terms of why people were talking about infrastructure, or sorry, affordable housing as an issue for their household. So let's dive into that a little bit. So we try to give them different options. Rents were too high. There are not enough affordable homes in my area. I worry may never be a homeowner. Rent control is not available in my area. I am or worry I may be soon homeless. So by and large, what we see is the two forks of rents are too high and they're not enough affordable homes in my area. So that takes about 75% of our answers. So when we peel the onion back a little bit in terms of this housing issue, it's simply rents are too high, okay? Or the second portion, there are not enough affordable homes in my area. Okay, so now let's take a little bit of a deeper dive in terms of the dynamics of home ownership. So the question is then, what's your current situation in terms of your home? So 46% said they had alternative living situations, meaning I rent, I live with family, or other. So this is representing a large population of the 9 counties. And then what we try to do is to break that down in terms of, who owns a home, who rents, and who lives with family or has other situations. And so what we see here is that when people self-reported, whites tended to own homes in our survey, statistically more significant than others in our party, so in our cohort. So for example, more than Latinos, more than AAPI, more than Blacks, more than those self-classifying as other. So 66% is higher than the state average. The state average is 55.6%. So we can see that in 9 counties, the white cohort tended to own more homes than their counterparts. And then conversely, then who rents? Well, Latinos are the ones that tend to rent significantly more than their white counterparts, and Blacks and other more so than their white counterparts. The opposite is also true. I live with family, then tends to be more Latino, more API, more Black, and other. Broken down by gender, same thing. In terms of the current situation, it tends to be more male than female. In terms of renting, more female than male, and no discernible difference between who lives with family by sex or gender. Then what we wanted to see is then by age, who were more significant, like we know that 66%, 66 plus, were more significantly likely to own a home compared to all other groups. As you see here, as the number is the highest compared to every other single group. And with respect to renting, you can see that every other group rents more than this older cohort. And I live with family, that tends to be a young people thing by and large. Again, broke it down by party. Republicans tend to own a home more so than in any other party. Renting, it's the inverse of this, which is mostly Democrat and NPP. And I live with family, tends to be Democrat and more NPP as well. So then taking a look at the non-homeowners, I rent, I live with family, etc. So for those who do not own a home, affordability is cited as a top reason. So you see here at 66%. Now, looking at home ownership, and again, turning this back to the top category of the 4, stability was the main reason. So if people answer that I own a home because it provides me stability for me and my household, that's the top reason, followed by generational wealth, and then inherited home. There's only a few of us who seem to be able to afford, have an inherited home. And then we asked the second question is then the greatest benefit to owning a home is financial stability and wealth accumulation was by far the largest response, followed closely by freedom to customize and control my living space. So that's the end of this section. Destiny.
Oh, sorry, my camera. Hi. Hi, Jose. Actually, if you could just review a little bit on reparations, and then we'll pass it on to our orgs. Just very
Got it. Thank you.
Touch through. Thank you.
Okay, then touching on the reparations movements, what we try to ask here for the 9 county is, how likely are you to support the reparations movement in California? And the San Joaquin Valley overall is split on whether they support the reparations movement in California, the likelies being in the 39.6%, almost 40%, and the unlikelies at 38%, with the middle being neither likely nor unlikely. If we break that down, there's similar categories that we have before. Black respondents, not surprising, are more likely to support reparation movement, while white respondents are least likely. So that's what you see here. That's significantly higher than anybody else, and least likely than everybody else. In terms of neither likely, you see API, and not likely, again, whites on the right-hand side. Women were more likely to support the reparations movement than men. You see it over here at 46%, significantly higher than the women than our male cohort. And not likely, the inverse of this, is more likely male than, say, female. Broken down by age, the good news that we see here is that the younger groups were more significantly likely to support the reparations movement, while older groups were less likely not to. So we see that here in the 18 to 35 category, as well as the 36 to 45 category. Likely to support, again, 52% at the first time that we break at 50% for this question in terms of reparations. Neither likely or unlikely is kind of even across the board, but not likely is our older cohort. So again, all age groups were similarly likely or neutral in the neutral category, but again, older tends to say no. Democrats were more likely to support the reparations movement than, say, their fellow Republicans or NPP at a statistically significant rate. Democrats statistically significant to Republicans as well as NPP to Republicans. Unlikely to support, again, the inverse of this is Republicans are unlikely to support, as well as a good cohort of 37%. Or a good a statistically significant number in comparison to their Democratic Party. So again, we're starting to see a couple of pictures. Then we ask the question is, if you support this movement, then what is the likely response, or there's the likely support that you would feel most beneficial? So by and large, advancing educational options for the Black or African American community was the number one answer, followed by housing vouchers and providing financial compensation. So the big story here is that education seems to be the way that people want to support the reparations movement. Youth. So again, we talked about the first two categories. We skipped the infrastructure, but we wanted to spend a little bit of time in terms of lack of opportunities for young adults. So what we have is that 2/3 of respondents who are concerned about the lack of opportunities for our youth believe that youth aren't prepared for the workforce, or they do not have enough entry-level jobs. So again, this is the majority of the answer that we hit for this question. So if people asked who were asked in question 2 at the beginning of the survey, you know, what is the question? If you peel the onion back a little bit, what is the reason for it? And again, these are the top 2 respondents for this question at 66% put together. So big key item here, key takeaways from the research. Housing concerns overshadow all other issues across the valley, and most are concerned about affordable housing across the board. Now, it impacts Latinos, Blacks, and other respondents, as well as females, more so than other groups. It impacts Democrats and NPP more so than other groups. All age groups, especially the 18 to 35, are particularly impacted by housing in the housing question, followed by local infrastructure and lack of opportunities for youth. Homeownership, so 54.4% of respondents are homeowners, similar to the state average, again, at 55.6%. And stability and wealth accumulation were the primary motives for and benefits. So renters who live with families, the barriers to homeownership that they responded to were affordability, income level, and down payment. Again, issues that are very salient at this time in California, but in particular in the Central Valley. With reparations, San Joaquin Valley was relatively split. 36.9% said likely to support, 38% likely to oppose. Support, Black respondents, females, youth, Democrats, and NPP, and in opposition to the question of reparation were white respondents, males, Republicans, and older than 56. Education was selected as the most beneficial form of reparations, and in the fifth takeaway from here, this study is youth, the top 3 issues for respondents overall, where 13.5% believe that there is a lack of opportunities for youth and young adults, while 37.8% believe schools did not prepare young adults enough to successfully transition into workforce. And an additional 28.3% believe their communities just don't provide enough entry jobs for our youth. So these are the takeaways that we have. I'm happy to stick around and answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much, Jose. This data is very revealing. Some of it seems second nature, some of it seems not so much, but it definitely tells the story of the San Joaquin Valley and what residents are feeling and being impacted at the current rate. And so I would love to hear from our organizational partners in regards to some of the survey results. And I know that we gave you a lot to digest, but really just want to talk about how youth and young adults of color are impacted by the housing issues and our educational institutions, and then also lead into the discussion of reparations and how affordable housing is impacting our communities of color. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it to Jaskeet to speak about some of the survey results and how that impacts our youth.
Thank you. And thank you, Jose, for visualizing that data for us. I wanted to take this time to talk about the high percentage of youth and young adults of color who have shared their concern about affordable housing, rents being too high, living at home with their family members, and believing that they'll never own their own property one day. The survey also yielded results that showed a high concern that our educational institutions are not adequately preparing our youth for the workforce. Income generation is definitely a barrier for these young adults. And if they feel they're not being prepared for the workforce, that they have unstable income, they therefore are at a great disadvantage by not having the tools they need to succeed and afford a home. So I wanted to share some of the perspectives I've seen from the youth that I work with. There has been such a high increase in high schoolers that are seeking part-time jobs to help contribute to household expenses. Many of them will reach out and ask, and they're not even old enough to work yet. So that's really concerning. So not only do they want to help take care of the household expenses, they at the very least want to take care of their own expenses. From a young age, they are extremely conscious of how vital money is for survival or even just simply having fun. And they're seeking future careers that provide a lucrative outcome over what drives their passion. If I were to ask them, what job do you want to have one day? What is your dream job? They want money. And that's such a, perspective I've been hearing from very, very young students. So for those youth who are transitioning from high school to college, I've seen two different opposite ends of a spectrum taking place. Many students, high school seniors, are choosing to stay and continue education locally, declining acceptances to schools that are out of town and out of state solely for financial reasons. And of those who are staying, they're overwhelmingly staying at home and living with family as opposed to, living on their own because the lack of affordable single living spaces, is here, and they don't feel it to be worth the rent that they would have to pay if it had to be split 4 ways just for that rent to be affordable. On the other end of that spectrum, there are those students who, at least within many immigrant communities, operate in a mindset that if they want a route to success, then they need to leave Fresno. They need to leave home in the Central Valley to do that, to get there. So there is a question among them of opportunity cost if they choose to stay, and if they choose to stay, then they would be missing out on opportunities that they just don't see available to them. For those that are transitioning out of college and into their careers, many folks do continue to live at home, which isn't out of the ordinary for certain cultures, but a huge incentive behind it is to simply save money, to hopefully afford a home one day, and not have to live paycheck to paycheck with their full-time jobs now. So I will now be handing it off to Monita to talk about the impact on youth in our African American communities.
Yes, thank you, Jiski. As we've seen in the slides as well, affordable housing is an issue across the valley that largely impacts our communities of color. We had asked the question about support for reparations in our survey. Reparations can be received in many forms, as you guys were able to see from the slides. But really quick, I'll run through them. So housing voucher programs, reducing over-policing of our African-American communities, financial compensations, and advancing educational options for the African-American Black communities. And the data, spoke very clearly. There was split data on whether or not residents were supportive of the reparations movement. However, it was still very telling, right? The survey results did reveal that educational opportunities for the Black community is most beneficial at 47.9%, which, is in direct alignment with the data that Jaskeet just went over, right? This data also mimics the reparations data that we collected last year, where the top 3 types of reparations that the community thought would be beneficial. The first being education, as noted, the second housing voucher, and the third financial compensation. So this completely mimics, and last year we just scanned Fresno. But this data also, is scanning, the San Joaquin Valley. So it's, very similar, which is telling. The educational opportunities can come in the form of free and reduced higher education as noted. But there's also a portion that wasn't noted. So like thinking about, more equitable schools and access to resources for schools in the Black community, books, tutors, access to mental health, accommodations, equitable learning environments, all that foster learning and growth, right, for our young people in schools. So those are all things that are attached to that educational opportunity, and the drive for that type of reparations work. If we educate our youth of color and work with educational institutions to better our workforce development, as well as hold elected officials accountable, in regards to rent increases, there's an opportunity to change this landscape 100%. We're currently working with the California Black Power Network as well. And we collected, as a collective, we have 89% ID rate of constituents in low-income communities that want government to put regulations on rising rent costs. So for my folks that are into numbers like myself, there has been 11,000 residents that were scanned across California. And of that 11,000, 10 of those would agree that there needs to be some type of regulation on rising rent. So, this data is very much so telling and in alignment with, what we're seeing in partnership with the California Black Power Network. And yeah, I just hope that you guys have an opportunity to have a better understanding of what reparations is and, just how it's affecting our youth in the forms of housing and workforce and education opportunities. So I will go ahead and pass it back to Destiny.
Thank you, Monita. And thank you, Jaskeet. I think these are all really important conversations to have. And I'm just so glad that you all are doing the hard work, the boots on the ground, to engage our youth and our communities of color to take action and vote and to do what we need to do to move forward in a positive direction. So I'm going to ask Jose if you could put up the slide with the key takeaways, because we are now moving into our Q&A session. And I did see that some of you also put some questions. Thank you for that. And I will go ahead and start reading some of the questions. If any of our panelists or speakers would like to answer questions, please feel free to do so. So Pahua Lee, he asked, where can we get this data information? So we will be sharing this information via this recording. And also, if you would like to stay involved and learn more about Move the Valley and what we're doing, boots on the ground, please leave your email in the chat. You can give us a direct message to the panelists and the hosts if you're not wanting to put that out for everyone. But we will contact you and we can share more information with you on upcoming activities that we have for this year. So the next question comes from Alejandro Carrillo. Is the report published and available for the community to read? It will be. So we are in the process of getting Move the Valley's website up and running. Once that is up and running, we will have the report available for the general public to view. And again, the recording will be also available for public consumption. So next question, Aloisa Hernandez. She says, thank you for the data. Housing is a concern. Has there been a trait, has there been a trait compared to the past years what has been the differences in findings from the past year? I'm going to direct that question to Jose and his team, because I'm not sure if that question was in our previous surveys.
Yeah, quite simply, we did not necessarily have that question in other surveys, but we do see a similar trend with respect to some of the other surveys that we've done. From Fresno Speaks 3.0, last year's result, we saw that affordable housing was one of our top items, followed by homelessness, crime and gun violence, etc. So number one, above everything else, was affordable housing. So this is 2 years in a row, I guess I should say more clearly, that home affordable housing or cost of rent was an issue. So yes, it's second year in a row. So now what we can do from a researcher perspective is we can see that long-term trend, and we can try to follow. And this is, again, just in the Fresno area, just in, now we're kind of making it larger to the Central Valley area, where we see that not only in the Fresno city area, but throughout the entire valley as a whole. So yes, and we do have this information broken down with respect to individual counties that we can make available at some point.
Thank you, Jose. The next question comes from an anonymous attendee. It reads, are the survey results shared with our elected leaders? That is an excellent question. Just to let people know, there are a few elected officials and staff of elected on our webinar currently right now viewing the town hall. So with the ones that are currently viewing, yes, the results have been shared, obviously, but we will be sharing the results with our other elected leaders, just so that they're aware of what residents are feeling, what their concerns are, and ways that we can hopefully formulate policy to address these concerns. So thank you for that question. Our next questions are the slides, will they be available? So yes, we will make the slides available. Again, if you can leave your information in the chat, we can send those quicker than having to go to our website and view it there. But yes, they will be available for some public consumption. So thank you, Eloisa. Okay, next question. When you hear my vote doesn't count, why should I vote? That is an excellent question. And I'm going to let some of our other panelists answer that question, because it is so important to vote. I can give you a million reasons why. I will say that I'm an example of voting. So in my past election, I was able to win by 9 votes. So voting matters. Every vote counts. And yes, it is really important to make sure that your voice is heard, that you are heard, and your vote is an extension of your voice. So I'm going to go ahead and let some of the other panelists answer that question as well.
Destiny, I can go first. I think it's a great question, Deanna. I think it wasn't really an aha moment for me, but what really crystallized the fact that voting was important was that, the folks who vote really get to shape our democracy, get to shape decisions, get to shape policy, right? So a quick story, I moved my parents during a pandemic. 11 out of 10 would not recommend. But I have spent the last 3 years trying to get her dental coverage. And in the last year, last year especially, they switched her insurance like midway into her treatment. And then I had to wait additional 8 months for her to get healthcare coverage again, right? And so I think, when I think about voting, it's really about how these systems are not created by accident, and that they are being controlled by those who participate and folks that are not looking out for our communities, right? And so for me, I think that is, I have been providing care for my parents, right? In my early 30s now, and then even at 12 years old, I was an interpreter for my parents, right? And so I think for me, it's always been, it reinforced that it just doesn't happen by accident, and that these decisions get made by folks who participate. And if I can't get my, parents, good health care, and I'm like in my 30s, I'm well educated, I can navigate these systems, they're still so hard to navigate, right? And so some people out there are making it hard for us to navigate, to provide the care that, our parents and our loved ones really truly need, right? In addition to the information that we have presented out, HIP also completed a community needs and asset assessment last summer. We had 2 focus groups for youth, 2 focus groups for young adults, and then 2 focus groups for parents. And I think through that experience, like, we thought we were going to learn significantly new things, right? That, what our young people were facing. And spoiler alert, we did not. And it's still the same struggles that I think, Hatsune had also highlighted earlier, and even in this presentation of what folks are going through. Like, these are lived experiences, right? And so, issues that come up are like the generational gaps related to education and job opportunities. You all saw the data that's coming back from our youth and young adults about the economic the opportunities that exist in the Central Valley. I know folks who still, to Justke's story earlier, is like, folks, the narrative that folks share is that they have to leave to like make it, right? And I think for us, it's really about how we are, wanting to build with our young people and creating the conditions in which they can stay and they can build with us, right? There is a growing economic insecurity as well. So I graduated from college during a time when the economy was in a recession, right? Back in 2012. And let me tell you, y'all, it was so hard to find a job. And the first job that I took was with AmeriCorps Vista, and it paid me $8,000 per year, right? And it's wild because I did everything right, right? I got good grades. I was in Asian club. I played sports. I got into a really good college. I graduated on time. And then for what, to still live in poverty. I had school loans, much of, as children of refugees, we also become, and I'm assuming that this is also for other immigrants as well, is that you do become a caretaker much earlier on, right? And I think the pressure for you to succeed and take care of your family is definitely there. And so if you, my thing is, voting is so important. You get to really influence and shape the policies that are out there that impact our communities in such a system-wide way, right? That I think it just gives us the opportunity to shape a better world. And so I hope that you hear this, and that you have us. And at HIP, we're always trying to, we are creating a political home for folks to belong to, and that you all belong here, and that, we are alongside this fight with you all, because the issues that are coming up are not new to, what we have continued to face in the Central Valley. And so this is like why I continue to stay engaged. And I've been in HIP for almost a decade. So it's been a beautiful transformation that I've seen in myself, in my leadership. And then now it's really a place and time in which, like, I do want to continue seeing the systems change work to be able to really support our most disenfranchised communities.
Thank you so much for that, Nancy. That is so spot on. We do have the power to make change, and we need to take back that power. I saw you just come off mute, Monita. I'm going to go ahead and let you speak if you want to answer that question as well.
Yeah, I just want to say, just really quickly, I really feel, as a African American myself, like, I understand just the struggle that my ancestors had to go through just to be in the position to vote, right? Like, Black people there were so many obstacles that prevented voting in itself, right? Like, historically, you had to be a landowner, or you had to pay fees. You know, some folks even died, you know, for the right to vote. It's not, I think it's way too important for us to kind of miss the mark. I definitely, as an African American, can understand the trust gap that's there between the institutions. I lived it. I know it. I talk to people who are also going through it. But I'm just reminded, you know, of the work that my ancestors, you know, died for and they fought for, and just understanding that, you know, that fight doesn't go in vain, you know, and that there was a reason why, you know, they were being prevented, you know, to try to infiltrate the system. So I definitely feel like, just sharing your voice, voting, it's your stake in your own economy, it's your stake in your community, and it's your stake in change. And for me, it's a part of generational wealth, right? Like having the opportunity to speak up for the generations to come and to vote. It's very important. So I hope that's helpful for some of you who might be feeling apprehensive about it.
Thank you, Monita, for sharing that. And thank you for reminding everyone here that yes, people died for this privilege that we have, that so many of us take for granted, that so many people are disillusioned by. Not voting is also a vote. So just please remember that. And I believe we do have some more questions. I'm going to look at the Q&A. We have a comment from Dominic Johnson. He says, if voting didn't matter, there wouldn't be so many efforts to take away the vote going on across the country, including disenrollment, voter ID requirements, and gerrymandering. Thank you for that comment. Michael Selly is with the Fresno City Council member Nelson Esparza, and he asked for the information. We will get that emailed to you, Michael. Thank you. And please thank the council member for his interest and having you involved in tonight's discussion. Thank you. So going on to the next question. John Minkler, are the breakdowns of the reasons why people chose other issues also available to view? I will connect with you, John, and I see that you did leave your email address in the chat, so we will connect later, and thank you for that question. And then Joanne Pacheco, I think she put a link for Fresno City College's dental hygiene. And thank you for that. That's a nice little PSA for people, because yes, dental hygiene is important, and our dental health is also linked with our other physical health. And she posted teeth cleaning at Fresno City College is $15, which is a steal. So if people are looking for getting teeth cleaning, Fresno City College is the place to go. So yes, thank you so much, everyone, for your great questions, your great comments, provided some really great discussion for us tonight. And I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to Letty to talk about next steps of what we will do now that we have all this great information. And Jose, you can leave that slide up. That's fine. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for taking time away from your evening to join us tonight and listen to such important data points that we know represent the stories of so many here in our beloved region. We are nearing the end of our program, and I'd like to invite you all to continue writing in the comments any questions or reactions you may have to the information that was shared tonight. I know the chat is disabled, but if you want to use the question and answer section, we will definitely see that. We will track any questions that we miss and follow up after tonight via our organizational social media platforms and YouTube. With that being said, if the survey results or data moved you in any way, empowering you to learn more or get involved in our work, please sign up for upcoming opportunities to participate and get out the vote. You can also comment that in the question and answer section, adding your contact information so that we can reach out to you. We'll continue to work engaging with community members, and like we've shared earlier, we'll be sharing this data with elected officials across the region. And you can also join us for those meetings to share your experience as a community member in the region. If any of this data resonated with you or stood out, it's critical that electeds and their staff not only see the numbers from tonight's data, but also hear directly from you as a resident and listen to your stories, but also your solutions to make our communities better for all. Lastly, we invite you to volunteer with our organizations to advocate with you for a Central Valley and Sacramento region that represents your priorities and your voice. As we approach the March primary election on March 5th and beyond, we hope you will join us as we continue to shine a light on our community's experiences and priorities that guide our work.
Thank you, Letty. Thank you for that. So I'd like to close the event tonight with some information. And I know we keep talking about March 5th, but it is a very important date. It's important because this is the date to make change for your community. Voting is only the first step. We must also hold our elected officials accountable and push them to fulfill their promises of change. The primary election is an opportunity for us to build up our community together. You may also contact me at destiny@tidecenter.org for any additional questions or information. And again, we want to thank you so much for your time, your participation tonight. The San Joaquin Valley Speaks survey has been an opportunity for us to provide voices for our 9 counties, and Move the Valley will continue to elevate these findings and community voices that create solutions and the inclusion of our diverse communities across our valley. We look forward to connecting with you all more soon. So please have a great night, be well, and thank you again. Yes, if the team could get off video just to say bye to everyone and good night. And again, thanks for joining us. Bye. Thank you.